Welcome to Story Maze, a place to lose yourself in wondrous fairy tales and broadcasts from other realities. Gwen, Queen of Spring, a Changeling The Lost story by Tom Moore. I totally get it that you can't help but to stare at her. Radiant as a star, she is standing there, as if a spotlight catches her in a crowd out of people. Everything and everybody sinks just into shadows, and she stands there in the center of an invisible stage. Part of it is surely connected to her being formed into a fairest, a creature of beauty and radiance. But even her own kind are drowned out in her presence as this happens. These are the moments I adore her, put her on a pedestal, call her queen by crown and right. No one could be a better fit, not here at least. She uses this attention to give directions to our community, to stop the other monarchs from bickering, and she's probably the only one who can silence the King of Autumn. On other occasions she cracks a joke or reminds us to behave like social beings and care for each other. She is the silent queen, for her voice is gone. Sometimes she uses me to relay her words, but most often she talks in sign language. Many learned it on behalf to listen to her. And I like to think, in her own ways, she's the most influential and powerful of all 4 monarchs. Few see her doubt or waver. Few see her like me. We go way back. We have been there together, during our lowest point, our captivity in the fairy realm. We lived through some rough times, and today I'm still at her side and won't leave her until the last day. That's my oath of knighthood I swore to her. I owe her my life and a voice. No one can tell you more about her than me. But let's not linger on my durance in captivity. I've no desire to revisit these times, nor does it teach you anything about her. To understand my relationship with Gwen, we have to look into our escape. We planned to flee together. We made a pact to see it through to the end and leave our tormentors behind. First, we had to get away from the palace in our keeper's realm, then make our way through the hedge, and finally find a portal which would lead into the mortar realm. Neither of us is a fighter. She was a singer, and I'm good with organizing tasks, shouting at people, and remembering to-do lists. No one would call us fighters, warriors, or heroes. The odds of us making this were pretty slim. But there was simply nobody we could trust to join us. So, yeah, listen to our valiant effort. To this very day, I can hear our 2 hearts beating as we hid behind curtains, statues, doors and corners as we encountered guards. The route through the palace was planned and remembered by me. I learned all the schedules and breaks of the guards. I watched every corridor, checked every door for traps. There was so much what could have gone wrong, and with every minute without being detected, my feeling of impending doom increased. We were on our way for maybe hours, and our keeper must have noticed our disappearing. Hounds and hunters should be at our heels, but they weren't. After some time, we didn't even encounter any living creatures anymore. The pathways were empty. Shortly after we passed the 5th door unstopped, my nerves gave in. My blood rushed in my ears. I could feel its pressure in my throat. My whole body was shaking and there was tears streaming down my face. I collapsed. The floor hit me like a wrecking ball. Gwen stopped in her tracks and turned around. I could feel her eyes resting on me, but I only saw her bare feet. Somewhere she must have lost her shoes. Although it was her voice calling for me, I only saw her feet. Her fingers gently reached out for me, and then she said, "You promised to come with me. I need you to fulfill your oath. I, Gwen, believe in you, and I need you to rise now." These were the last words I heard her speaking in her true voice ever since. These words carry me through every day, as they did in this hour of my failure. She might have used her magic, but that's not the point. She reminded me about our oath. And if she was going into the hatch, a place literally made out of thorns, with bare feet, I can get my shit together and guide her away, as I am fucking supposed to do. I stood up, and despite my newfound determination, a new wave of fear hit me. The walls, the ceiling, and the floor were gone. Glass covered everything and transformed the corridor into a prison made out of mirrors. I looked into Gwen's eyes and concentrated. I focused on the map I had drawn in my head. This place was trying to fuck with us by hiding its true outlines. The harder I concentrated, the clearer the image of the walls returned into the mirrors. My brain hurt, but the mirrors were still there. She grabbed my hand and gave me a look which was easy translatable. Keep concentrating and be prepared. We need to run. Then she sang. She sang for a keeper every day, and the whole court would stop just to listen to her, freezing in place. But this time it was different. She started sad, and full of fear. With a shaking voice, she was testing the wall of glass. Then she was swept away by anger and wrath, building up energy like a furious beast leashing out against our prison. And then, at the finale, she sang of confidence. She sang with joy. And her voice was calling out in pure, unlimited pride. Gwen, later Queen of Spring, the silent crown is a force of nature. Suddenly, all outlines of the palace were back into my head, and I saw our path in front of us as the mirrors started bursting. We ran through an explosion of millions of splinters. But as one mirror was destroyed, our keeper manifested another out of thin air. Singing needs air, and people have to breathe. The short breaks of Gwen to take breath were enough time to strengthen all barriers to full capacity. We were placed into an endless maze that split realities. Even more so, I could see her tiring, could see that all her grace and beauty were only there to hide a very frightened woman who tried her best. There was doubt flickering in her eyes as we ran, and we realized that as soon as her powers wane, as Gwen would stop singing, we would be done for. I muttered, "Remember our promise," and I strengthened my grip on her hand. It might have been my words. It's just as possible as she making up her own mind. But then she decided to make the sacrifice. She grabbed one of the bigger pieces of glass and pressed it against her lips while she continued to sing. The next moment she grasped for breath. The singing went on. To save us, she had given away what many considered her only treasure: her voice. She left the piece of glass behind, and the song continued. Without the breathing breaks, it was strong enough to push the fairy and her mirror crafts back, away from us. And we ran as her voice continued singing and becoming quieter and quieter behind us. The rest of our escape was a similar experience, but there's no value in iterating that part of our story. What matters? We made it. We are here. She saved me more than one time, and that I will never forget. By being with her and vowing my unwavering loyalty to her, I'm granted with honesty and her true feelings. I said, I can't hear her true voice anymore. That's right. Nobody can. But something else happened in her war of voice and mirror. We made a connection, and now I'm in the lucky position to hear her thoughts in my mind. At least the thoughts she likes to share. She has many opinions, an unquenchable lust for very bad movies, and yes, she doubts herself, still today. How could she not? People take her as the embodiment of a perfect rehabilitated returner. Even if she was perfect, the pressure is drowning. But she deals with it every freaking day. And that's why you should listen to me as I order you to move this crate of bourbon into the car and get ready for the feast by the name of our fucking queen. Changeling the Lost, 2nd edition, is owned by White Wolf and published by Onyx Path Publishing. This piece of fan material was written, recorded and edited by Tom Murr. Co-editing by Ben B. All the art on the channel is designed by Looney Dragon. You can find her at Twitter with the label @LooneyDragon. Thank you for listening.